That's
And committee's going to come to order in about 30 seconds, so just let you know. Okay, the committee will come to order. Good morning, and we want to thank everyone for being with us today as we discuss the present and future state of American manufacturing. Given the importance of manufacturing to our economy, I'm delighted to be holding this hearing and listening to the testimony provided by our outstanding panel here this morning. We have 4 great witnesses. When people think of manufacturers, too often they think of giant corporations with huge production facilities and steam whistles commanding shift changes. The truth is that the vast majority of American manufacturing is done by small businesses. In fact, 99% of all manufacturers are categorized as small. Though they might be considered small businesses, their effect on our economy is enormous. Manufacturers in the United States employ over 12 million people and directly contribute over $2 trillion to our economy each year. We can't underestimate their indirect influence either. Every dollar spent on manufacturing in America adds $1.37 to the economy, and a single manufacturing job can lead to the creation of 3 to 5 more jobs in other industries. Without a doubt, manufacturing plays a vital role in America's economic well-being. The economic force that is American manufacturing is now facing a significant challenge: preparing a workforce that can do the job. According to the National Association of Manufacturers, NAM, over the next decade, nearly 3.5 million manufacturing jobs will likely be needed, and 2 million are expected to go unfilled due to the skills gap. There are 2 major contributing factors to this widening gap: baby boomer retirements and economic expansion. An estimated 2.7 million jobs are likely to be needed as a result of retirements of the existing workforce, while 700,000 jobs are likely to be created due to natural business expansion and growth. In addition to retirements and economic expansion, other factors contribute to the shortage of skilled workforce, such as lack of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM skills among workers, and a gradual decline of technical education programs in public high schools. Frankly, another big problem plaguing American manufacturing is its perception. And as the old saying goes, perception is reality. The things we build, the way we build them, and the skills required to do so are significantly different than in generations past. This is not your grandfather's or even your father's industry anymore. It's high-tech, it's skills-based, and it provides good jobs with good benefits that can provide for growing American families. We must do a better job educating young people to improve the perception of what manufacturing really is, and getting the word out that manufacturing oftentimes, for the most part, is clean and safe and high-tech rather than dirty and dangerous. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the innovative ways that we can work together with academia and manufacturers and former actors on Cheers to address the workforce development issues facing the next generation of American manufacturers. And I would now like to yield to the ranking member, Ms. Velasquez of New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for holding this important hearing. Throughout much of the 20th century, American manufacturing was the nation's economic engine. The country rose to its place as a global economic superpower as customers clamored for the latest American-made products. However, manufacturing's role in the U.S. economy has changed considerably since then. But today, we are seeing a manufacturing resurgence. Following years of decline, U.S. manufacturers added 6,000 workers to the payrolls in the last 7 years. Moreover, the country's export, a key measure of manufacturing activity, had been growing exponentially and are now at their highest level in recent memory. These are positive developments, with almost 1/8 of our economy rooted in manufacturing. Strengthening this sector is vital to our country's overall economic health and to job growth for working families and the middle class. Although this renaissance is promising for our nation, there remain challenges that are preventing the sector from reaching its full potential. According to the latest U.S. Census Bureau data, small and medium-sized businesses account for 95% of world consumers, so we must ensure American small manufacturers have access to this global market. And as the U.S. becomes an attractive destination for new manufacturing facilities, workforce training programs must adapt to provide the skills necessary for manufacturing jobs in the 21st century. Greater federal investment in science, technology, engineering, and math education will enhance domestic manufacturing. Local and private sector apprenticeship programs can prepare young people for careers in rapid growth areas. For manufacturers everywhere, access to capital is a persistent problem. This is especially true for smaller startup firms that are on the cusp of fast growth. For this reason, I introduced the Scale Up Manufacturing Investment Company Act. This legislation will expand investment opportunities for small and emerging manufacturers. We must also remember that economic growth depends on innovation. Research and development fuels technological advancement, and it is critical in fostering new jobs. Unfortunately, the federal policy shift from domestic investment to deficit reduction could have severe implications for U.S. competitiveness in international markets and for manufacturing jobs. All of these and other challenges point to a need for concerted efforts at the federal, state, and city levels. In recent years, House Democrats have united behind the Make It in America agenda, a series of proposals to strengthen and expand our manufacturing base. These efforts are important, but they can only succeed if they are guided by insight from the actual businesses. That is what makes today's hearing so important. As such, I would like to thank you for being here today and sharing your experiences. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. I'll now, before introducing our panel, explain briefly our rules. We operate on the 5-minute rule. You'll each get 5 minutes. We'll get 5 minutes when you're finished to ask questions, and we have a lighting system to kind of assist you there. You have 5 minutes. The green light will be on for 4. The yellow light will come on when there's a minute to go, and then the red light will come on, and we'll ask you to wrap up. If at all possible within that time, we'll give you a little leeway. Now to introduce our distinguished panel here today. Our first witness is multi-Emmy nominated actor, director, producer, author, and staunch Made in America advocate, John Ratzenberger. While he may be best known for his role as Cliff Clavin on the television show Cheers, or for his voice acting on Pixar movies, John has spent the better part of the past 2 decades passionately campaigning about how important it is for Americans to recognize the needs for and to provide the training to produce skilled laborers. To that end, he produced and starred in the Travel Channel series Made in America, which highlighted American-made goods and the workers who build them. With speaking engagements across the country, he continues to encourage the reintroduction of trade, mechanics, shop, and carpentry skills back into the schools so that we can marry human talent and skills to today's innovative society in order to create a better America. Thank you for being with us today, Mr. Ratzenberger. Cliff. I couldn't resist that. And up next will be Dustin Tillman, founder, president, and CEO of Elite Aviation Products in Irvine, California. Elite is an aircraft component design, engineering, and manufacturing company committed to providing cost-competitive, quality manufacturing and customer-centric solutions to its clients. a graduate of the University of California, Los Angeles, where he received his Bachelor of Arts degree in economics and political science. Dustin entered the supply chain management industry and quickly attained the role of Director of Supply Chain Management for Zodiac Aerospace, a multi-billion-dollar aerospace company. More recently, he maintained a role in the business management sector for Panasonic Avionics Corporation, where he oversaw the strategic and tactical performance as well as the business relationships of dozens of worldwide partners. And we thank you also for being here this morning, Mr. Tillman. Our next witness will be Dr. Ray Perrin, president of Lanier Technical College in Oakwood, Georgia. He is testifying on behalf of the Association for Career and Technical Education. Dr. Perrin is completing his 36th year as an educator and is currently leading efforts to construct a new main campus for Lanier Tech in Hall County, Georgia. He previously served as president of Wiregrass, Georgia Technical College, as assistant commissioner for technical education for the Technical College System of Georgia, and as president of East Central Technical College in Fitzgerald, and as dean of academic affairs for DeVry University's operations in Georgia and North Carolina. His first 20 years as an educator were spent in the Paulding County School System in Dallas, Georgia, where he served as a teacher, elementary and middle school principal, and as the district's superintendent of schools. We thank you for being with us here this morning also, Dr. Perrin, and I would now like to yield to the ranking member, Ms. Velasquez, to introduce our final witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Kim Glass, Executive Director at the Blue-Green Alliance. Over the past 15 years, Ms. Glass has served in senior leadership positions in the Obama administration and the U.S. House of Representatives, most recently serving as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Textile, Consumer Goods, and Materials at the U.S. Department of Commerce. In that capacity, she worked to improve the domestic and international competitiveness of a wide array of products. She served for 10 years on Capitol Hill, working extensively on manufacturing, trade, and economic policy issues for Congressman Mike Michaud from Maine and Congressman John LaFolle from New York. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ratzenberger, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for having me and inviting me up. You're probably still wondering, what does he have to do with manufacturing, this guy, this actor? I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and at the time it was the jewel in the crown of the industrial Northeast. We pretty much made everything there. We made ships, we made rifles, we made boats, bead chains for electric lights. As a matter of fact, evidence is mounting more and more that the first mechanized air flight took place there by a German immigrant named Gustav Whitehead 2 years before the Wright brothers. So that's the kind of town it was. Everybody had a skill. I grew up amongst people who knew how to do things. All the neighbors had skills. We never called a handyman into the house because if you couldn't do it, if your father couldn't do it, your uncles, there was a neighbor, and everybody traded skills, whether it was carpentry or electronics. Everybody knew how to do something. And as the years have gone on, we find that that's just the opposite now is happening. It's very difficult to find someone to lay bricks or to build cabinets, and we all know that. But there's a reason that happened, and it's because early on, just after the 60s and into the 70s, sort of got the idea that, everybody's got to go to college. I went to college, but I could also build a house. When I was 14 years old, I decided I want to learn how to build a house and everything in it because I was surrounded by people who knew how to use tools, and I did. So after college, that's really what kept me alive was my carpentry skills. And I raised my children in the same way, saying, get a skill that nobody can take from you, and also a skill that you can go anywhere in the world and tomorrow you'll have a job. But when we were kids, also, it was different because we were free-range children. When Saturday, it was, what are you doing inside? Get out, go play. Well, that was it. That was the order. There was no structure to it. There was no helicopter parenting. We went outside and played. We built tree houses. We rode off on our bicycles 5-10 miles from home. We didn't even know our home telephone number. But, the chain of the bicycle breaks. You got to be home before the streetlights are on. Well, you got to fix that bicycle chain. So we thought we were playing, but in actuality, we were problem solving every single day. When you're building a tree house, you've got to put the ladder on the side of the tree, and you knew very early on that you didn't use finishing nails to put those ladders on because it popped out, and before you know it, you're in the hospital with a broken arm. It was part of the deal. But once again, we were problem solving, and we've taken that away from our children now. They don't grow up problem solving anymore. We cuss at them and make sure that everything is okay in their world. And then when they get to college, they have nervous breakdowns because things aren't going their way. We didn't get trophies for just showing up. And that was the big difference. But the most dangerous thing we've done for our civilization is that, again, in the 70s, 30, 40 years ago, we canceled shop classes and we canceled home ec classes because whether it was political experimentation, social experimentation, said no, boys and girls are the same, and girls shouldn't be in the kitchen, and boys shouldn't have this advantage. So we took those skills away from our kids, and nowhere along the line do they learn those skills, especially if they don't have a father or an uncle that teach them that. I was a carpenter, and I made sure my kids knew how to handle tools, and to this day they're doing real well because of it, because you also learn common sense when you use tools. But we took that away from the kids too. So now we're in a situation where there are 600,000 jobs available in manufacturing. That's just in manufacturing. There's hundreds of thousands of jobs available in construction all over the country. But at one time, we were in an agrarian society. We grew up on farms or near farms. And so you learned the advantage of using tools because you had to. You couldn't call 1-800-fix-my-barn-door when it blew off in a storm at 2 in the morning. You dealt with it yourself, and you saw your parents dealing with it, and you knew that that was possible in your life. So you stretched out more. Even during World War II, a lot of the accounts I read said we won it because if a Jeep broke down, at least 9 out of 10 people standing around knew how to fix it. And now that's just not the case because we have so many people now, we moved into cities since the Industrial Revolution, but even then we had shop classes to keep up with the Industrial Revolution. But we canceled those, so now the kids growing up in a lot of the cities, and if they don't have the advantage of growing up in farmland or near the sea, everything is done for you. Someone else picks up your garbage, someone fix the heating in your building. So your mindset growing up is, somebody else will take care of it. And that's just not healthy for our civilization. We have to get back to I'm capable of doing that. I can fix that. I can build that. So we must reinstate shop classes back in the schools. There's got to be a way of doing that. And there's actually several ways of doing it. But the disadvantage is that we're not going to have workers showing up. The average age is 58 years old right now of people that know how to make things in the United States of America. When they're retired, that's it. But we've also have 70% of everyone incarcerated in the United States is a high school dropout. And when the shop classes were canceled in schools nationwide, the dropout rate went up 30% because these kids had nothing to do. You weren't offering them anything to do. And those of you in the room that know, of how to fix things, make things, you know that's a lot of self-esteem goes along with that. You don't need a trophy. You don't need someone to show up and say, here, good job for tying your shoes. Because you built that coffee table. You fixed that roof. And your self-esteem is just there. It's married to the accomplishment of making something with your very own hands. So when I cross the country and I talk about this, and I've been doing it now for 15, 20 years, because when I was doing my show Made in America, there was one thing, I went to a company that were making a sports equipment, a specific sporting equipment. I don't want to say what it is because the CEO will get angry at me, but the man who was going around fixing all the machines, I was talking to him, and I said, so you're probably pretty close to retirement, huh? He says, yeah, a couple of years. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, well, fishing, this and that. And so we started, I said, well, who are you training? He said, well, there's nobody to train. These kids come out of high school, they can't even read a ruler. It's because they don't teach them the use of tools. So there's nobody coming up after this guy. And this fella's job was to fix the machines when they broke down. I said, what happens when the machines break down and you're not here? He said, well, they're going to have to fly in somebody from the company that made the machine. I said, well, that could take a couple of weeks. He says, yeah. The machine will be shut down for at least a couple of weeks, maybe 3. And productivity stops and the orders stop, because if you can't deliver that product to the customer, they're going to go somewhere else for that product. So that company could fail just for the want of that one man who knows how to use tools. And that I found all over the country. And that's what made me start, because I do love this country dearly. I lived overseas for 10 years, and I know what a great country this is. And I know that it's the strength of America that keeps the world at peace. And the strength of America is manufacturing. You know, manufacturing is to America what spinach is to Popeye. And the older folks.
Ratzenberger, I think we'll conclude with that, if you don't mind. We'll get a little longer with questions here.
Oh, does this mean I'm 3 minutes over?
Yeah, it does.
I thought I meant I had 3 more minutes to go. I thought, gee, I thought I'd been talking more than 5 minutes. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. You'll have more time. We'll just get to
I
the
don't
questions.
need it. You're
That's
fine.
right. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Tillman, you're recognized for 8 minutes and 17 seconds, apparently. No,
Thanks.
just five
Thank
minutes
you.
if you can.
You got 6 seconds.
Good morning, Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the committee. First off, wonderful remarks from the both of you. That's you sort of hit the nail on the head. We're very proud, our company, to be an American manufacturing company. I'm proud to be a part of the reshoring effort. We've been able to bring a lot of jobs back, and I'm also proud to say that we've been able to take work back from China, believe it or not, by introducing some of these efficiencies, a focus on innovation that you guys made reference to. And while you know, we're doing a lot of exciting things, and we're supporting what's being referred to as the second golden age of aviation, when I started the company in 2013, there were certainly struggles that we faced, struggles from a capital perspective, as was alluded to, struggles from a human capital perspective, as I want to talk about. But by far and away, the biggest question that I got was, what the heck are you doing starting a company manufacturing parts in America? And that's a travesty, you know. As John made reference to, I believe in the American dream as well. I believe in the spirit of America. Now is the time for us to really reassert our dominance as a manufacturing powerhouse that we once were. And I think through committees like this and through the testimony and some of the strategies and policies that we can talk about, that we can apply this, and not just for aerospace and defense companies like ours, but for all businesses, because it is important and it needs to be a priority, you know. When you talk about the working capital challenges, the government's done some significant things. They've introduced the Jobs Act. This was a very important piece of legislation for us, raising capital, articulating the message that we have as an organization to grow, and making it a successful vehicle for us to accomplish. The human capital challenge is by far and away the biggest one. People come to our facilities and they say, what's your biggest struggle? Is it the machine tools? Is it the facilities? No, it's finding good qualified people. You know, they don't exist anymore in the numbers that they once have, and it's a sad state of affairs right now. And I've got to say, for as great as a country that we are with regards to media, we do a horrible job demonizing manufacturing these days. Nowadays, it's the millennials that we need to focus on. We need to make manufacturing cool. And this is really where we've found a tremendous success, really dedicating ourselves to institutional folks from academia. You've got to really showcase the exciting aspects of manufacturing, because it is exciting. Nowadays, when you walk into our facilities, it is like walking into a new tech environment. There is not the dingy machine tools with grease everywhere. You're walking into an extension of the cutting edge of technology that is exciting. And when you watch these operators making parts nowadays, it's like watching a thing of beauty. There's certainly art and there's a lot of science behind it. And getting that message out there is going to be important so that we don't fall short and have this enormous generational gap affect our ability to remain competitive. For us as an organization, we've had significant success working with veterans. We founded a nonprofit called the Elite Veterans Initiative, where we focus on not just providing support to these folks, and there's over 500,000 unemployed veterans today. I would argue the number is probably higher, and I would also cite that veterans in general say that finding a job is their biggest challenge getting out of the military. And this is a problem for us as a nation. These are folks who are well-trained. They have all the skill sets, the discipline, the honor, integrity that makes manufacturing and business in general great. And we need to embrace these individuals, and not just by providing support, turkey dinners, but also training and providing employment. We're proud to say that 10% of our workforce is veterans, and this number is growing as we grow. I'd also like to shed light on some of the legislation. I think that traditionally there's been a lot of focus on small minority disadvantaged businesses, which was very important, particularly in the 60s and 70s. We need to take a fresh look at this legislation. We need to make sure that it's evolving with the changing dynamics of the marketplace. I'll speak from a supply chain guy for a second. To remain competitive, the large folks out there, the Boeings, the Northrop Grummans, they have to consolidate their supply chains. Unfortunately, as part of that consolidation effort, you're finding a lot of those businesses, once participants of the Supplier Diversity Initiative, going out of business. So I think we need to take another look at that. We need to not only empower individuals, but also companies employing these individuals, because that's going to be a recipe for long-term success, in my opinion. And this is what I've experienced growing a business and struggling to do so. But we are growing. We have 3 sites in just over 2.5 years. And we are, again, very proud to be a part of the reshoring effort. And the good news is, like I said before, we're in the midst of the second golden age of aviation. There's more booked, undelivered work now than at any time in the history of flight. The time is now, ladies and gentlemen, to really reassert ourselves as the dominant manufacturing powerhouse that America once was. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Dr. Perrin, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And members of the committee, I appreciate the opportunity to come before you today to discuss the changing face of American manufacturing and the need to assure that we have a well-trained workforce. I have so much I'd like to say, but in respect to the 5-minute rule, I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version. I think it's a given that the faces of manufacturing has changed greatly in the last few decades. In fact, manufacturing has probably changed as much from the technological revolution as it did from the industrial revolution back in the early 1800s. Although the face of manufacturing is changing, the perception of manufacturing has not changed. Too often people think of manufacturing jobs as being physically repetitive work, carried out in dirty environments with little or no ability to utilize critical thinking to improve job performance. Nothing could be further from the truth. Many, if not most, of our nation's manufacturers utilize highly technical equipment, practice lean manufacturing and quality philosophies that require the workplace to be clean, safe, and highly organized, and encourage critical thinking. Yes, manufacturing has changed. It's important to note that educational programs are also changing in order to meet the needs of today's manufacturers. Another lingering perception is that in order to be successful in this country, one must have a 4-year degree in a white-collar job. While there will always be a demand for individuals with 4-year college degrees, the truth is that most of today's high-tech jobs can be filled by individuals with 2-year degrees or shorter certificates awarded by our nation's technical colleges. These technical colleges are our nation's pipeline to assure manufacturers have the workforce needed to thrive in the United States. Most technical colleges are regionally accredited, connected to business and industry, and allow students to prepare for good-paying jobs and without accumulating large amounts of debt. And that's a real win-win. As has already been said here today, according to the National Association of Manufacturers, over 98% of our nation's 250,000 manufacturers are considered small businesses. 3/4 of all manufacturers employ fewer than 20 people. Manufacturers are in almost every community across the nation. The average manufacturing worker in this country earns over $52,000 per year, and that's nearly $80,000 per year when benefits are factored in. The overwhelming majority of these workers participate in health insurance programs through their employer. Over the next decade, nearly 3.5 million manufacturing jobs will be needed. Although manufacturers provide excellent pay and benefits, 2 million of these nearly 3.5 million jobs are likely to go unfilled due to the skills gap. So we have good jobs, and today's young people represent the brightest generation this country has ever raised. So what is the disconnect? I believe that it goes back to the perception I've already mentioned, that our longstanding belief that one must have a 4-year degree and a white-collar job to achieve the American dream. More discussions such as the ones that we're having here today are necessary to change this perception. We need events to encourage this discussion, such as the Manufacturers Forum held by the Greater Hall Chamber of Commerce in Gainesville, Georgia, which bring together community leaders, high school administrators and counselors, business leaders, parents and students. We need creative outside-the-box solutions, such as the partnership between Lanier Tech, the Georgia Governor's Office of Student Achievement, the Hall County and Gainesville City Schools, and Goodwill of North Georgia, which provide an alternate pathway to high school completion. This program has provided outstanding results and has allowed a group of young people to go from being potential high school dropouts to skilled welders working for manufacturers such as Kubota. We need community involvement as typified by the Mahola spirit found at King's Hawaiian. This manufacturer is so tied in with the community that people everywhere see the quality of life enjoyed by its employers. While I believe that local efforts are essential, I also believe that the Congress has a unique opportunity to support technical colleges and workforce development as you reauthorize the Carl D. Perkins Act. I also ask that you consider funding year-round Pell. Just as manufacturers and other employers never stop operations for more than a week or two, technical colleges operate on a year-round calendar. Manufacturers and businesses are looking for a steady stream of graduates, not just in May. Most importantly, and I think is the spirit that's been expressed here already, I think that Congress should look at taking lead in creating a Sputnik moment for technical and career education. Just as the nation got behind the effort to become the world's leader in space exploration in the 1950s and 60s, this nation needs to get behind the effort to secure our role as the world's leading manufacturer. I would like to ask Congress to consider providing funds to improve our nation's education infrastructure. Many of our technical colleges were built in the 1960s, and although these colleges work to keep equipment up to date, some equipment is in service much too long due to lack of resources. Just as our nation's highways and bridges form critical transportation infrastructure, education infrastructure provides the pathway from today into the future. Finally, every time I come to this place, I'm in awe. I'm in awe of the great history of this place. I'm in awe of the leadership of this nation has been blessed with. I'm in awe of the work that you do every day. I ask that you be in awe of us. Be in awe of the amazing work that happens in our nation's technical colleges. Be in awe of the life-changing work we do in preparing young people and adults to enter the workforce with skill sets that are in high demand. Be in awe that the changes that we're affecting are generational in nature. Grandchildren who are not even born today will have a better quality of life thanks to the work that's being done by our technical colleges with their grandparents today. In conclusion, I appreciate the time you've afforded me in this panel to discuss the new faces of American manufacturing. I ask for your help and for the help of the entire business and manufacturing community in ensuring our nation's technical colleges provide the trained workforce we need in order for our economy to prosper for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Glass, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman, Ranking Member, and the distinguished members of the House Small Business Committee. My name is Kim Glass, and I'm the Executive Director of the Blue-Green Alliance, and we're a partnership of labor unions and environmental organizations committed to creating that fair economy for our manufacturing base. I'm delighted that you're holding a hearing like this today, and I'm really honored to be asked to participate on behalf of all of my organizations. At the center of the Blue-Green Alliance work is strengthening American manufacturing, driving new business and quality job creation across the clean energy economy. The Blue-Green Alliance Foundation helps to fulfill that mission because we directly work with manufacturers, a lot of small manufacturers across the country, to enter those clean energy economy supply chains, and providing assistance to those manufacturers of all sizes to participate in some of these emerging sectors. But I would be remiss to not mention some of the challenges that our manufacturers across this country, both small and large, are facing. The United States lost millions of manufacturing jobs between 2000 and 2014. And of the more than 2 million jobs lost during the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009, less than half of those have been recovered. Lack of adequate resources to enforce our trade rules, currency manipulation, and failed trade policies all risk turning back the clock and further exacerbating these threats to our manufacturing base. But while there's challenges, we do see opportunity. Domestic and global markets for energy efficiency, renewable energy, clean transportation infrastructure are growing, and our small and medium-sized companies that we're working with are looking at those opportunities to grow their business here at home. Just here's an example. As part of some of our larger national initiative, we've been working on a housing initiative regarding retrofitting low-income housing across this country. There's a transformation in retrofitting low-income housing. We've identified more than 1,000 U.S. manufacturers and distributors of products ranging from insulation to energy efficiency lighting to HVAC systems, looking for opportunities to grow in the United States and globally. Manufacturers already are investing. Industrial manufacturers of all sizes are already investing in energy efficiency and to help keep down on their costs. But an additional 15 to 30% reduction in overall energy consumption can be achieved through further deployment of industrial energy efficiency with on-site renewable technologies. And if we're taking advantage of some of these efficiencies, that creates opportunities for small and medium-sized manufacturers to make those technologies here at home and making our businesses much more globally competitive. Public infrastructure projects utilize significant financial resources, whether it's building bridges, tunnels, or transit systems. When you use inputs sourced from countries with weak environmental or labor standards, that has long-lasting implications, not only on our workforce here, but with higher greenhouse gas emissions, toxic air emissions, and potential impacts to the safety and the reliability of the materials used for public infrastructure. We believe strong procurement standards, Buy America, Buy Clean, for publicly financed infrastructure projects will help make sure that these projects are more domestically sourced and provide enhanced opportunities for smaller U.S. manufacturers to break in and further grow their businesses. Finally, the automotive industry has regained its competitive position globally and brought back over 250,000 direct manufacturing jobs, building new and more fuel-efficient vehicles, advanced auto components, and innovative materials. And it's critical that we continue the growth of advanced automotive manufacturing, and a lot of small and medium-sized businesses are seizing those opportunities. But to further seize the opportunity to grow these quality jobs, we need to prioritize key policies and investments. First, our companies are looking for market certainty. Manufacturers across the energy sector depend on policy leadership and consistency to create the climate for a robust private investment in these promising yet emerging fields. Second, additional investment is needed to bring more energy and transportation infrastructure up to the level needed to support our country and the global economy. Third, we need to look at forward-leaning standards, procurement policies to spur adoption of clean and efficient technologies and encourage investments to deploy advanced energy, transportation, and infrastructure, and to manufacture these technologies in America. And fourth, it's important to provide technical assistance to small manufacturers looking to enter the market. That one-on-one support is absolutely critical. And finally, the energy workforce is aging. It is critical we utilize established apprentice and other training programs to ensure all manufacturers, regardless of size, have skilled applicants for the jobs that they're looking to fill. I really appreciate the opportunity and your support and your work around small business, and thank you for the opportunity to appear here at today's hearing.
Thank you very much. And we'll now have 5 minutes to ask questions, and I'll begin with myself. Mr. Ratzenberger, you had mentioned when you were making the Made in America series, the story about the gentleman that if the machine broke down, there wasn't really anybody here to fix it, so he'd have to have the thing shut down for weeks and bring somebody in from Europe or somewhere else. Were there any other stories of that nature that you think we could learn from experiences that you had while making that series?
Even recently, to that point, I was in the airport and Kennedy, and a fellow came up to me and thanked me for my work in promoting jobs and skill training. And I asked him what he did, and he said he made heat tanks for compressed air. And I said, "Where are you off to?" He says he's going to Argentina to hire welders. He said he had jobs for 30 welders, could start tomorrow. He's flying to Argentina to find them. And that, more than anything, I find nationwide, people come say, "Look, I could use 10 welders. I could give them all." And we're talking salaries 65,000 and up. Some welders are making $100,000 a year in very specialized welding, but people are desperate for those jobs. Employers can't find them; they don't exist anymore because the ones that still work are working. They're making good money, and they don't want to uproot their families and move to another state. There's no reason.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mr. Tillman, let me turn to you. A topic our committee has examined extensively is the cost of federal regulation and how that cost is borne by various segments of the economy. Research has found that manufacturers pay nearly $20,000 per employee per year on average to comply with federal regulations, or nearly double the $10,000 per employee that is borne by other firms as a whole. So manufacturers are much higher. How much of a factor do you believe that things like this, the regulations that businesses have to deal with every year, and those are increasing, how much is that related to firms in this country deciding, well, I'm heading to Mexico, or I'm heading to China or elsewhere to do business there because regulations are a lot less?
It's a determining factor. You know, I think it's different state to state, obviously. We're a company that has presence not only in California but also in Washington State. And absolutely, it plays heavily on where we decide to expand to. We have big growth initiatives. We'd like to expand to most states within the domestic economy located near some of these hot centers of aviation activity. You know, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now. It certainly needs to be re-looked at. The fact of the matter is, it's inevitable that folks, in order to stay alive, they're being subject to some extremely competitive pressures now to keep doing what they're doing. And the more regulations that continue to weigh them down, it's not that they want to. They are absolutely, as a necessity, forced to. And that's something that we don't want to see happen, certainly. We've had to fight and fight and fight to stay competitive in the state of California. And while we've done it, you know, it certainly doesn't hurt having regulations that really, you know, foster and incentivize wanting to stay there.
Right. Thank you. I've only got a little more than a minute to go. Dr. Perrin, Mr. Ratzenberger had talked about the 30 welders that somebody was going all the way to Argentina to get. And I've heard similar stories to that and other things, which we're not training people anymore. And when you still have, you know, 5% approximately of Americans that are unemployed, which is probably double that if you really look at the people that are have given up looking for a job and they're no longer counted in those statistics, or people that are working part-time that used to be working full-time, or people that are underemployed. You know, they've got the qualifications to work, and I'd be earning a lot more, but they're working at a fast food industry job or something, and that's honorable work, but oftentimes that's work you might want to start out and then move up. But what ought we be doing in the education system to deal with those types of things? What aren't we doing now that we ought to be doing?
A couple of things come to mind. First of all, reintroducing career technical education programs at a stronger level at the high schools, even though they're strong in many of our communities, affording high school students to begin welding, even in middle school, you know, learn how to do basic welding. Our technical college, we're limited only by our physical space in terms of the number of welders that we can turn out. Every welding booth we have is full. And we have the same issue in our community. Kubota is expanding their manufacturing facility near Gainesville. They'll be hiring 600 additional welders in the next 3 years. Where are they coming from? And again, we're at capacity now, and again, helping our K-12 system also continue to re-energize their vocational programs is important.
Thank you very much. Sorry I ran out of time, Ms. Glass, but my time's expired. The gentlelady from New York, the ranking member, is recognized for
you.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to hear from Ms. Glass and Dr. Perrin. As more manufacturing begins to move toward clean and green products and technologies, education in these technologies, products, and business operation must do the same. Are the curriculums keeping up with this move toward green technology?
All of our programs meet with industry advisory boards 2 times a year. This industry advisory boards are made up of employers, manufacturers. They provide us with guidance as to what they expect in the workplace. So we do revise our curriculum based on what our employers are telling us. And we also introduce green equipment and other equipment that is used in the workplace based on what our employers tell us from those biannual meetings.
I'll just note that I have building and construction trades as part of the Blue-Green Alliance, including the plumbers and pipe fitters, where those welding skills are needed, and their apprenticeship programs are wildly popular. They have done major recruitment efforts to ensure that that next generation workforce is learning the skill sets necessary for that clean energy economy, and learning that skill set that when they're doing the work, that it's qualified work, that it's certified to meet the standards, that it's delivering what that work should be. So we're very excited about some of the work, and I think, you know, there's more opportunities for apprenticeship programs like the building and construction trade apprenticeship programs to work even further with technical colleges to ensure we're all pulling in the same direction.
Thank you. Mr. Tillman, manufacturing in my district is alive, is growing. The problem that we are facing is the lack of space. But I just would like to ask you, as more manufacturing work moves towards automation, workers need advanced education to operate the machinery that produces highly technical goods like computers and aerospace parts. These jobs also command higher pay, helping more families live the American dream. Do you feel your employees are adequately trained, or must you invest in training and education upon hiring them?
Yeah, we've taken a very aggressive stance on human capital. You know, again, we're in the people business. We work with a lot of local technical schools, which is something that not a lot of manufacturers do. We bring in training programs into our facilities if they're not offered in terms of apprenticeship and things like this. We have a pretty robust human capital management training program. I think in general, as automation becomes, which is the trend, you know, certainly that it's going, these environments, they need to foster innovation. They need to embrace it. I think oftentimes with traditional manufacturers, they're possessing a lot of antiquated technologies. You don't see a lot of reinvestment, and it certainly prohibits them with the aging workforces. If you have a lot of people trained on previous generation of technology, it's not so easy to embrace, you know, these new practices. So I think you have to get in front of it. We're certainly doing that.
And do you have any recommendations as to what we can do at the state and federal level to provide the kind of incentives or the kind of support that you need? Because I can believe that that could be very costly.
Absolutely. You know, and certainly we'd like to see more incentives for us to go that extra mile and ensure that we are, again, ultra-competitive environment out there. And organizations have to be incentivized to want to go the extra mile. We would like to see more work done at the academic level as well, and not just at the technical school level, but even before that, K through 12. This is the time.
Do you sell your products abroad?
We don't currently.
You don't?
No, we don't currently, yeah.
I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Hanna, who's the chairman of the Subcommittee on Contracting and Workforce, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Pell Grants, you couldn't be more correct. They ought to be year-round, and there's a conversation ongoing about that. Interesting, Mr. Ratzenberger, I asked my wife why she married me, and it's because I don't watch TV. I do average plumbing, average electrical work, and I'm an okay carpenter, right? That's her short list. So, but there's there's something strange about this conversation, and I say that because there's also something insidious about it, which Mr. Rastenberger kind of alluded to. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we discouraged years ago the very thing that we're missing today. Now, one would naturally think that the laws of supply and demand would fix all these problems that we're talking about, right? But clearly they haven't. In my own community, there's a few hundred jobs that we know of, maybe a couple thousand, that is defined as the skills gap. And yet, you know, you'd say that wherever there's a vacuum, labor flows in. But it isn't happening. And I'm interested to hear what you said, that it's because we discouraged people from going into the trades. And I've got, Mrs. Glass, 35 years in the operating engineers. You know, that's what I did. That's how I made a living. And there are great ways to make a living, but we told people that wasn't good enough. Somehow that wasn't appropriate if you wanted to, whatever it was, do. And so now we find ourselves in a place where we're short of jobs for the very reason we thought we wouldn't be. And at the same time, we have this enormously costly 4-year educational process. And Mr. Perrin, you talked about 2-year trade schools that prepare you for a lifetime of jobs. And we know that most people change jobs. It used to be once, now it's 7 or 8 times. It's disturbing to think that something so valuable has been was at any point in our history was diminished. But Mr. Ratzenberger, what do you think about that? I mean, how do we get to a place where this may be a philosophical question too.
No, I sometimes I joke around saying it was my fault because I helped. I was a carpenter and helped build the stage at Woodstock, and it was right around then that the perception shifted, where we started honoring mediocrity instead of success. It flipped the whole the idea of what it is to be a success right on its head. So that seeped into the school system, certainly the media, because now instead of, and I always use the Beatles song, and forgive me, you Beatles fans out there, but Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, picture yourself in a boat down the river with tangerine trees and marmalade skies. So it's lionizing the people who do drugs and have hallucinations floating down the river. But my question always was, who built that boat? The boat is the key factor. Someone with a work ethic, someone with skills, built the boat so you could do nothing. So I think the media, especially, anytime it depicted someone with tools and knew what they were doing, somehow they were always either the villain or being depicted as stupid. So why would a child growing up looking at that want to be that? I even think, I go so far as to say we should change that term blue-collar worker to essential worker. Because if they all went home, didn't show up to work tomorrow, we'd screech to a halt. But we can do without actors and sports celebrities. Only our families would miss us if we disappeared. Society would go on just fine, seamlessly. Imagine if all the truck drivers pulled off to the side of the road, said, no, we're not going to work today. These are the people that should be honored in the media, certainly in commerce. So, and I guess because my mother worked in a factory too, and when I picked her up late at night, it was 3 to 11 shift, and I thought there should be an audience here applauding these people, because this job and these people are what keeps us going. You know, I'm icing on the cake. You know, and, that's my favorite part of the cake.
I think to Ms. Glass, that's why I've always supported Davis Bacon. I mean, what's wrong? Davis Bacon is parody, you know what it is. What's wrong with making $70,000 to $100,000 with benefits? When you walk around the Capitol here, people are at a lot of things, but the thing that strikes me is the construction, the actual building, the physical presence of what we see here, and the talent that went behind it, and it's quite amazing. So it makes you feel bad, doesn't it? But what we've come to is that we need to be a society now, because the world's so competitive and the world is leveling, that it's those value-added products through higher education, more complex, more intellectual capital like elite, that will actually make us competitive with the world. to sell those things that we can't make here because they don't pay well and they can be done someplace else. But now we're in a position where we have to say we need to educate ourselves better, compete better, and as I said, make value-added products. My time's expired, but thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And the chair would note for the record, I think that's the first time, and at least in my 20 years, we've heard Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds quoted here in this committee. So we thank you for that. And the gentlelady from California, Ms. Chu, who's the ranking member of the Economic Growth, Tax, and Capital Access Subcommittee, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Glass, my state of California is home to the largest manufacturing base in the country, and also it has some of the strongest carbon reduction policies in the nation. In fact, California was responsible for about 11% of the nation's manufacturing production. Can you tell us about how federal and state governments can encourage industry growth to ensure that the clean energy economy is developing good manufacturing jobs in the U.S.?
So I think the state and federal policy plays a key role in contributing to how and whether manufacturers continue to grow. California has been a leader across the country on environmental policies to help spur that sort of next generation of investments. I would caution, though, that there are some big industrial manufacturers who are producing products in California and on the West Coast that are producing aluminum or steel steel inputs that go into some of that next generation product. And you want to ensure that we are sourcing those products here in the United States, where it's less carbon intensive. Importing steel from China is 2 to 3 times more carbon intensive. So how do we ensure the full value of the benefits for the clean energy manufacturing economy go from the raw material producer all the way through the chain? But I think the state and the federal government have a lot to do with whether manufacturing in this sector will grow and really seize the opportunities that lie ahead.
And how about some of these tax credits? For instance, how has the long-term extension of the production tax credit and the investment tax credit impacted clean energy manufacturers?
They have been enormously helpful in ensuring that these industries see a longevity and making ensure that they're cost competitive with those companies that are importing product. I will say that because there's been uncertainty around those tax credits in the past, a lot of companies have been hesitant to make the investments that they wanted to make in this sector. And I really appreciate Congress moving forward on that. I think that was a significant leap ahead. But, markets demand certainty. And so I would continue encouraging this type of thinking of how to get to the next generation technologies.
And the research and development tax credit was made permanent. How could this R&D credit be made to be more business friendly?
I think that was a wonderful step forward. I think, a lot of this work actually happens on the ground level of, manufacturers talking to technical colleges, talking with apprenticeship programs. I think there's a lot more fostering and convening that needs to happen locally to ensure that next generation workforce is in the pipeline, and that manufacturing is a career opportunity that everyone wants to be a part of because it's part of the gateway to the middle class.
Mr. Tillman, I enjoyed your story on reshoring. So I have a question for you and the panel, which is when a company shifts manufacturing back to the U.S., jobs are not only created at the new factory, but at many surrounding businesses like parts suppliers, restaurants, and real estate agents. Can you elaborate on the secondary economic impact of reshoring manufacturing?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen that as well. Certainly bringing jobs back from a manufacturing perspective. Obviously, in the aerospace and defense industry supply chain, there's quite an extensive supply chain, and we have seen elements of that locally for us, even within the Southern California region. And that's all part of the effort. Again, we speak about the successes we have, but moreover, it's about the success of America, and that's why we're here. And I think if we can see more of that in general, not only in California, but throughout the rest of the U.S. economy, you're going to see the multiplier effect of that, and we are going to do our part, and obviously, we're here to ensure that Congress is doing their part. But again, I think together we're going to get there. The momentum has changed. Reshoring is here to stay. We are doing a better job at getting the message out there to local schools. We need to continue that. This needs to be an ongoing effort. And again, now's the time to do it because there's so many opportunities out there, you know.
Anyone else on the panel? And how could we incentivize an increase in the purchases made by large businesses from small business suppliers and reshoring? Is there a way we could do that?
So with regards to incentivizing for raw material production, and I think, you know, Ms. Glass spoke to it, certainly, you know, from parts that we manufacture, there's a value stream to that, and it begins with raw material production. Certainly emphasizing production in the United States would be a huge benefit to this initiative, in my opinion. And you know, I think just clarity with regards to some of the policy. I know, as Ms. Glass mentioned, there's a lot of leaps forward, and I think we need to encourage that. You know, after the legislation is put into place, let's take the next steps and really get at the ground floor and see how that legislation is affecting tactical business management and strategy. And once we do so, I think it's going to shed a light on some other opportunities there, clarification within that legislation, making it aware. We as a company obviously seek these sorts of things, and oftentimes it's not terribly accessible to us. So more broader education on how these policies affect local businesses would be tremendously helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from Nevada, Mr. Hardy, who's the chairman of the Subcommittee on Investigations, Oversight, and Regulations, is recognized for 5 minutes.
I'd like to thank you all for being here. I think it's an informative discussion we're having here. You know, Mr. Atzenberger, I think you hit right on what I've always believed. I grew up as a fifth-generation son of farmer ranchers, and, you know, we could hold just about anything together with baling wire and duct tape and make our things keep moving. And through that process, I went to college for 1 year. In that year of college, the first thing that was taught to me by my aide was that to make sure I get an academic education, because, you know, the trades and everything are going out of style. You're not going to... Mr. Perrin, do you believe that's part of maybe the problem, that academia is pushed so hard to make everybody get a college education that they've looked down on maybe the trades as being a viable opportunity to raise a family?
Well, again, it goes back to some comments I made that the perception of success in this country tends to be tied to a four-year degree, and the trades don't tend to be in that career path or that education path. Yeah, I mean, there's a perception that everyone wants their son and daughter to graduate from a four-year institution, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, most everyone in this room did that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that, but not at the expense of keeping others from going into areas where they're passionate. There's so many kids that if they had the ability to use their hands, if they even knew what they could do with their hands, if they were exposed to career explorations where they know what the careers are that are available out for them, they could follow their passions and go into the trades and view these things as not something you do if you can't go to college, but something you do because you're following your heart, you're following your dreams, and you're doing what you're wired to do.
You know, one of the issues that I think has really been frustrating for me, I think, Mr. Ratzenberger, you brought it up, but 35 years ago, the schools changed. When I grew up, we had auto body, we had shop, we had welding, we had all these opportunities to do certain things. You can learn trades, but you also have to learn work ethic, and I believe you brought that up. In our state of Nevada, we saw that shift almost 40 years ago when I graduated, to where these were leaving. Now it's starting to come back, but it's coming in a different level, which is higher tech, but it has to do with the drones and building robotics. But these youth have to get involved. It's not part of academia. It's something they do on the side, and the trades are providing opportunity for these youth to come out and learn how to build something with their hands with fancy machines and everything else that's donated by society. Do we need to invest more in our high school education to prepare people for going into college, in your opinion?
I think we should be investing in the grammar schools. Every innovator, from Leonardo da Vinci, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs, started as a child tinkering. I knew Steve Jobs, and we talk about that. how he loved working on car engines with his dad. Thomas Edison had 3 months of formal education. 3 months, that's it. And he hung around a boatyard, learned how to do things. Leonardo da Vinci was an illegitimate child, grew up on a farm. You have to get them when they're young, just tinkering and making things and old cardboard boxes. My mother, God bless her, she used to get old radios from garage sales and cut off the cord and just say, here, take it apart. And that's so I've been a tinkerer and an inventor ever since. Just love putting things together, taking things apart. It's all you have to do with a child. It's very cheap, too. But you have to start young. Because once they get, Thomas Edison never went to a school and said, I want to learn how to invent a light bulb. It all happened in here when he was very young. So that my recommendation is start at the younger ages, K through 12, as Dustin mentioned. And that's where it needs to start. Once they're in high school, they're already set. They have their likes, dislikes, their priorities. And certainly college, it's gone. I sit on the board of a university, and I always jokingly say to the president every year, before we give them their degrees, they should be required to go out to the parking lot and change the tire of their car. If you can't do that, then what good is your degree? You don't have enough common sense to do that. But I also joke, and I say, before anybody can be sworn in, any elected official, you should be required to assemble a coffee table from IKEA. I mean, that's tough.
Now you're hitting too close to home.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I know you farm boys can, so.
My time's expired. I just wanted to tell you and Mr. Tillman, thank you for lunch last night, or dinner last night. No, he didn't buy me dinner.
Yeah, it was a good restaurant, too. Yeah.
Gentleman's time's expired. Gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Kelly, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all you witnesses. It's so important, and I have my district has a lot of manufacturing and a lot of agriculture. And I would say in Mississippi, my part of the district, even though it's rural, most of the manufacturing is coming there right now, and it's coming because of workforce. We have a very skilled workforce that is getting better every day. We also have water and rail and energy and all those things that are important, as well as workforce. But we have a community college system in Mississippi that is still pretty good, and I think it's one of the best in the nation. It's one of those things that I think we should thump our chest about. It's often funny. We have people who come to manufacturing jobs in Mississippi, and they come kicking and screaming, telling their folks, I can't believe I've got to go to Mississippi. And you know the problem with that is they never want to go back. They want to stay because of the people and the things that are so great there. Veterans are also very good in my heart. I've served a long time. One of the things, I know you've got veterans that work for you, but we talk about certificates of skill or journeyman's license or professional trade associations. What are we doing to recognize those skills that these soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marine, because we have heavy equipment operators, welders, carpenters, mechanics, all of these things. Are there anything in the civilian side or Small Business Administration that recognizes or certifies these guys coming off active duty or reserve component who have on the job and training that is not necessarily recognized in the civilian side? Does anybody know, and specifically Mr. Tillman?
It's actually interesting. I was at Northrop Grumman, the global headquarters, earlier this week, and the woman that I was meeting with is a veteran, and she was saying a big part of the problem that exists is interpreting a military resume, which has a lot of the same fundamental attributes that normal college resumes have, but it's written differently, and there's different skill sets that are emphasized. And she brought to light that because she is a veteran, she's able to, and oftentimes on a hiring committee, say, no, that's actually what we're looking for. It's just called something else. So I think in general, businesses need to be more equipped on that. That's going to happen inevitably if you are hiring more veterans, because you're going to be embracing that skill set, right? And just the knowledge and know-how that goes into interpreting it. But the reality is, again, it's quite a travesty when veterans cite finding a job as the hardest thing. So as they retire from active military, as they're entered into the job force, companies need to be incentivized. And again, not because it's not something that they want to do, it's just so competitive out there that there has to be an overwhelming desire for them to go the extra mile. And when we've done it, it has been very successful, and introducing training programs, like I said. But these are the folks that we need to, and it's a cultural thing. And a lot of active military that are retiring now are millennials. They do fall into that 18 to 34 category. And, you know, another part of that question made me think about what we hear a lot, which is the sort of Google myth that you have to have sleeping pods, you know, in order to make employment exciting, and that's not the case. A sense of belonging, a sense of community, listening, empowering them to be successful, giving them a voice. This is really what they want ultimately, and if we can work towards creating that culture, you're going to have a higher success rate, whether it's veterans or any other millennials or people even before that.
And Mr. Chairman, that's just one of the things. There's so many skill sets. First of all, people who come out of the military generally are very humble and do not inflate their resumes with the things that they're capable of doing. Unlike a lot of kids who come straight out of college, they're trying to turn certain leadership positions into doing these great things. And these kids out of the Army are coming out in Navy and Air Force, and they're coming out with great leadership skills that don't show up on their resume. So there's one, we need to teach these guys how to write about their skills. Two, I think we really need to look at a civilian equivalency skill sets to go with all MOSs in all the military services, because you've got airplane mechanics and helicopter mechanics. The skill sets are even in our signal and intelligence corps. These guys are dealing with cutting edge technology that you guys haven't seen yet. And fortunately, I've been exposed to that. But these kids are way ahead in technology of where sometimes we are. But there's a hard job to transition that from the military to the civilian skill set. So I really hope you guys will think about ways that we can highlight these skills and make sure, and I apologize, I only have 8 seconds left, but I yield back. But please think about ways we can take care of our service members and use those skills to maintain our role as the greatest manufacturer in the world.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Yields back. The ranking member is recognized for purpose of asking questions.
Yes, just one question. Dr. Perrin and Ms. Glass and even Mr. Tillman, do you have how many young women and girls? Because I can see in the discussion some type of stereotype. And how can we get more young girls and women interested and change the mindset that in the trades is not for girls or women? Yes.
This might get to Mr. Ratzenberger's comments about, sort of tinkering and learning early. As a woman who has devoted her entire career to growing the manufacturing base, I don't recall a single time in elementary school or in high school where a guidance counselor or career counselor ever said, have you considered going into manufacturing? And do you know what manufacturing today looks like? Because it's a lot more innovative. It's not your mom and dad's manufacturing anymore. It's very lean. It's very automated. It takes high skills in terms of engineering skills, math skills, and science skills. And personally, I think women don't fully understand or may appreciate the type of employment and how it can be a family-sustaining wage. There is this gap. There is a gender gap in the building and construction trades. There's no doubt about that. But I think,
and even when you look at STEM,
yep,
right, and the national focus on it, when you look at the numbers, you see a great gap with
completely.
women.
It's something that, I don't know exactly how to bridge that gap. I think a lot of people have been thinking about ways to do that. But I think, earlier on in the school age, women need to be shown that there's possibilities in this sector, what these sectors are about, what are the types of jobs in these sectors, what is the income level of these sectors, to get people more talking about the fact that they want to be part of a manufacturing skilled training future.
We also encourage non-traditional learners, whether it's women going into welding, air conditioning, also men going into nursing or whatever. We encourage non-traditional learners to try to bridge that gender gap. So we actively encourage that. If I may address the gentleman from Mississippi's statement, if I may, returning military veterans, when they bring their MOAS to us, we evaluate that, and we actually give them course credit based on the service work that they did in the military, so they can actually earn significant course credit when they return from servicemen and servicewomen, when they return from service towards a degree that at colleges all across this nation. So we are trying to recognize the tremendous skills that they've learned while they were in the military.
Okay, did you want to
Yield
comment, Mr.
back.
Tillman? Yield back?
The only comment that I would have is I think it's a curriculum issue. I think there's a certain social level of acceptability in schools. You know, John spoke a lot about solving the problem by bringing shop classes back, and that's by and large a lot of it. I think kids in general, I have children, they're encouraged to do more traditional things, and I think if you make that more acceptable in general at the lower level, K through 12 area, they will not feel so awkward, you know, by pursuing a non-traditional pathway, because the reality is absolutely it's misinformation. As Dr. Perrin was referring, we have very high-paying jobs, and as a manufacturing company, we maybe see 1 in 1,000 women who apply because it's such a rarity. So we would love to encourage more of that.
Thank you. Gentlelady yields back. Okay. Before wrapping up, we'll check with the gentlelady, but Mr. Ratzenberger, did you want to comment on kind of the role of women as you've seen in manufacturing? And I think you mentioned your own daughter and your
Oh yeah, my own. No, my daughter's a great carpenter.
Yeah.
She's a producer in Hollywood, but she had her own toolbox all through college. But in addressing that, I talked to one of the retired commandant on West Point, and I said, "Where do the best officers come from?" Without skipping a beat, he said, "Farms, boys and girls." And I said, "Why is that?" Just because they're always problem solving from a very young age. They're problem solving instantly. They have to deal with it, as you well know. And if we reinstate those manual training classes in schools, the children, boys and the girls, that don't have the advantage of growing up on a farm, they have the advantage of putting their hands to physical things and problem solve. And that's where because the brain is formed between birth and 3 years old, 5 years old maybe. Then the brain is formed. So that's the age you have to get kids interested in the fact that they can mold the world around them to their liking. You don't let the world mold you. You mold the world. You take what nature gives you, say, how can I make something else? Again, Steve Jobs, Da Vinci, Thomas Edison. That all starts at a very young age. So boys and girls doesn't make a difference at all.
Very good. Thank you very much. I would like to comment as chair. I think all four of you were great. Excellent panel here. There's a lot of takeaways. You know, we spend a lot of money on education in this country every year, and you know, we need a highly trained and skilled workforce for jobs that are now going unfilled, and that we have to seek people in Argentina to do our welding. I mean, it's incredible, and so I think you have given us a lot to think about here as members of the Small Business Committee. And as we said, 99% of the manufacturers are small business folks, so this is right in our sweet spot. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. We will share it with our colleagues, not only on this committee, but other committees in Congress as well. And I would ask unanimous consent that members have 5 legislative days to submit statements and supporting materials for the record. Without objections to order, and if there's no further business to come before the committee, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.